welcome to the ShowShow with your host, Uncle Wobbly. I'm Uncle Wobbly. Hello again, my friends. Feel good about this one. I think it's gonna go good. Welcome to the ShowShow. This is where I just talk into the camera about movies that I watch. I watch a movie, I randomly pick one off of the long list of things I need to see, and then I talk about it, and whether or not I liked it, and I rate it 1 to 10. A lot of it is just, like I've said before, it's just guilt, because I just feel bad about what a fucking waste I am. I never do anything. So, yeah, the last show, first off, last one was short, or long, too long. Not as long as they've been before, but still too long. So, sorry about that. I'll work on that. I'll try to bring it in. But I think this is going to be a good show. I don't know why. I just do. The show this time is going to be the movie, well, do you know the director Kurosawa? I've heard about him forever. He's like a hardcore, important director guy. But like, I guess he has like samurai Japanese movies, and a lot of his movies, like Western movies, are like based off of. So he's kind of like this legendary, guy that directors watch more than viewers. So if you're gonna care about film and stuff, you kind of gotta get him all figured out. And he does all sorts of stuff, but a lot of it's about samurais, I guess. Lots of genre bending. So yeah, I have a bunch of Kurosawa on the list, and because I don't know really anything about him, so every time I see a Kurosawa movie, I just add to the list. Every time I see it go by in IMDb, and so I added them, and I hit one today. I can't remember which one, but I've already decided that once I hit a Kurosawa, I was gonna figure out the best place to start with Kurosawa. So I read a little kind of blurb, and it sounds like his career sort of went like, first he was just a director in like early Japanese cinematography, and through hard work he kind of eventually attained a point where he was pretty much indirect, like had full control. For a long time he did. He was basically making things sort of with lots of input from the studios he was working with and whatever. But eventually hit a point where he was in editorial director control. And after a few of those, he finally had one that was like a breakthrough success called Rashomon, which was like his first international success. That's when Westerners kind of discovered him and basically threw him at Japanese cinema in general. The Westerners were pretty fond of Rashomon, and it went on to inspire like Western adaptations and everything. And from there, he kind of continued to explode and did a bunch of others. Probably his biggest, I think, if not Rashomon, is Seven Samurai, which the Magnificent Seven comes based off of. And apparently Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, otherwise known as the first Star Wars movie, is like George Lucas' homage to a Kurosawa film, which I didn't realize, but it kind of makes sense. But, so, yeah, it seems like the best place to start would be with Rashomon, and then if I'm on board, then maybe move on through his international hits. Chronologically, and then maybe way down the line worry about revisiting his pre-Rashomon stuff. So yeah, starting today is gonna be Rashomon. See you soon, bitches. Wow, this scene will symbolize me watching
seen, said no one ever. This movie was awesome. I love Rashomon. But before that, thinking about how I was going to approach this whole thing sort of made me do a thought bubble that I kind of thought I'd share. Is the real reason for the show, as I've said several times, is to make me feel a little bit better about an activity that I'm not proud of, which is basically my lack of activity. I just put something on the screen in front of me. I'm becoming a more cultured person. It's part of my education. At the end of the day, to improving myself, I will bring more to each situation I go in. So in the law, I'm being productive. That got me by so far for a while, but it starts to wear thin. So I thought I'd add to that not only am I watching this TV to productively improve my inner world, but I'm also going to make internet reviews that no one will see on the internet, and they're going to be really bad. But that way I'm providing a service. And but I haven't really stopped and thought about what is a review, and like, what service am I providing, and who am I providing it to? And so I kind of had a moment with Rashomon because so much of this film is about the search for truth or whatever, and like the details and the facts of what happened in the plot. And so it made me torn, like spoilers, like so much. It's a very spoilerable movie, I'd say, kind of. And so I thought, like, well, what is my stance on spoiling movies for people in my reviews? Is my review for people who have seen the movie and are engaged in it enough to like want other opinions and examination, or are my reviews for people who haven't seen the movie and might see the movie, and by rating it, am I giving them some sort of guidance on whether or not to see it and what they should expect? Because that's what will determine spoiler stance. And I've been thinking about it, and like maybe like late down the line, I might do like a little anthological thing of movies I've reviewed positively, and kind of like recommendations, like a watch list here, because guys, here's 4 or 5 good things to watch or whatever, for people who are doing that. But I think my main purpose is going to be people who have seen it already, just because I think I'm not sure I've ever sat through a review of a movie that I haven't seen yet, because I'm always afraid of getting spoilers, and I hate other people's opinions. If I want to arrive at an opinion, I want to feel like I got there myself. And then once I have an opinion, I like to go and like see if it's right, and if other people agree with me, or if I'm a maverick, and everyone else has it wrong. So I think, and so far, what little activity I've seen, I just think it's more likely that more people are going to watch a review about a movie they've seen than about a movie they haven't. Especially since I'm not reviewing new shit. It's not like I mean, there's new shit in the mix, but like it's right now my list is like about 300, and I mean Rashomon was 1950. I mean there's no decade, but so a lot of the shit I'm gonna watch is old. So it's not like people who are like, ooh, which new movie should I see, or which new TV show should I see? It's just gonna be like chaos. And so I think I'm not going to worry too much about spoilers. So, that said, if you haven't seen Rashomon, please don't watch this, because I don't want to ruin that experience for you. Alright, now Rashomon. Rashomon was really good. Really, 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 really good. My first Kurosawa film.
Alright, well, I guess my recap. So, in a nutshell, it's a movie about sort of a crime and a series of events that unfold around a bandit attacking a samurai and his wife. Then the different perspectives of what happened, conflictory, is that a word? Sounds like a word. Conflicting accounts from everyone involved. The search to find out what really happened. And that's kind of, in a nutshell. In a slightly bigger, less nutty shell. So it's a story. It's in a frame, and I love frames. That's a story within a story type thing. That's when the main story happens inside of a little mini story that kind of provides a chance for people to tell it or whatever. And the frame is you have three men. This is like feudal Japan, which I don't really know my history there very well, but three men meet during a heavy, heavy rain in a ruined building. I thought it was a ruined temple, but it seems to be a gatehouse. And that building itself is called Rashomon. Hence the name of the film. You got these two guys hiding out, waiting for the rain to pass in this ruined building, and a third guy joins them. The two guys are a priest, who's kind of younger, and an older fella, sort of a laborer type, like just a commoner, I'd say. They both have just witnessed sort of our main story unfold, and they are just stunned. And this random fellow happens to pass upon them, and this guy is irreverent, just kind of a selfish asshole, and sort of just a pragmatic, selfish, wandering asshole. Tell me a story. Never mind. I don't care. Blah blah blah. He's just an ass. But like not a villain, just an ass. And this guy sits down with him and starts trying to build a fire and asking them about this story they've seen. And then so through their retelling, that's the frame for our story. In fact, there's a frame within a frame, because it turns out the crime, which I'll get into more, but the crime, there was a trial, and they're actually not really retelling the crime as much as they are retelling their part testifying at the trial, and then retelling every other witness that they heard's testimony at the trial. So, but we zoom, basically both of them initially give sides of the story, which are almost irrelevant. The older man, the woodcutter, he's the one who found the body. The forensics it sets up the forensics that he found. He finds the dead body of the samurai, a woman's hat, as some tattered ropes, and a trampled samurai hat. And then he finds the body of this dead samurai. That's his story. That's all. He just kind of like finds the body, and then he goes to like testify about it and tells them that. Then we go to the priest, and his story is even less relevant. He sees the samurai on the road and his wife. The samurai is traveling with a beautiful woman in a veil, and she is on a horse, and he's walking beside it. That's all she sees. Then we introduce Tajimoro, I believe is his name. He confesses to being the murderer and tells his side of the story. And I'll get into like kind of that in a sec, but he tells his side of the story. And then we get to the wife, the samurai's wife, and of course all this through recounting in the rain from the old man or the priest, I can't remember which. It's sort of being handed to us third hand. We get the wife's story. Then apparently they employed a medium to channel the dead victim at the trial. And through the medium, we get the dead man's story. And then from there, the
woodcutter recounts his story, and then we realize that his original story, where he finds the body, was wrong. And he just didn't want to get involved. But he actually seems to have witnessed the whole thing. And so we get his real version of the story, kind of fourth view. Finally, after that, there's sort of a weird business with the baby the three men in the rain here crying, and they go. The third fellow who joined him he has kind of no morals, and he's a selfish bastard. So someone has left a baby at Rashomon just in the rain, wrapped in an expensive kimono with a pendant. Presumably, it's a child born of shame or something like that.
He steals the goods off of the baby, much to the chagrin of the old man and the priest. Then he fairly cleverly sees the hole in the old man, the woodcutter, I guess, because the laborer guy who recounted his tale, and the guy who found the body, he was originally up there cutting wood, so I guess he's a woodcutter.
And the bastard asshole sees a hole in the woodcutter's recounted story and points it out, which basically makes the bastard woodcutter guilty of being an asshole himself. Then he runs off in the rain with the goods from the baby, and the priest has the baby, and the old man he winds up volunteering to take the baby. So that's kind of the overplot. Now the underplot, really the story, it's about how these different perspectives, and how no perspective of the crime can be correct fully. They all have contradictory elements, and the truth is elusive because the teller is subjective and weak, as is the listener, the hearer of truth. People trick themselves as they're lying, and listeners trick themselves as they're being lied to. A lot of this gets to my own philosophical stances and just resonates so well. I like Martin Heidegger, bastard Nazi that he was, and I find this very compatible with Heideggerian thought. But, so getting into, basically you kind of have a rock, paper, scissors situation between the three actors in the main story, or the three players in the main story. The dead samurai, his wife, and the bandit, Tajamoru. And basically, there is no agreement between them. Tajamoru's story, the overstory is the parts that were generally agreed on to some extent. Tajamoru's sleeping under a tree as the man passes by with his wife and catches a glimpse of her, and when he sees her beauty, he decides that he has to have her. Then he goes to the man and tricks the man into... He doesn't want to kill him. He just wants to take his woman. So he tells the man that he's found an ancient, like a buried cache of treasure, essentially, mirrors and swords, and that he'll sell it to the man cheap. And the man says, okay. They leave the woman behind to wait for him, and suspiciously he follows the bandit as he guides him through the woods to a remote clearing where the bandit falls on him, attacks him, and ties him up by a rope. So that way he can leave the guy tied up, and then he can go and have his woman. So he goes and gets the woman. He gets this weird idea. He wants her to see how weak and pathetic her man is. He's jealous of the man. He wants her to see him all tied up. So he tricks her, and he says, he's fallen sick. Please come, you need to come help him. So he takes her to the grove willingly, and then she sees him tied up, and then he falls on her, and she defends herself with a knife. And the knife, it becomes important. She has a very beautiful, expensive pearl inlaid knife. He's surprised
and she's ferocious and fierce, and he loves it. And they wrestle around. She tries to stab him a bunch. Eventually, he wrestles her to the ground and pins her and begins kissing her. And in his version of the story, she begins kissing him back. Mind you, right in front of her tied-up husband. In their throw, she drops the knife, and he has his way with her. After he's done, she's sort of crying and sad and torn. He's going to take her away, and she's going to stay with him. She's like, basically says, well, he'll do as he will, but she can't have two men. Basically, she says that they need to fight over her, and he needs to free her husband. Two men can't know her shame. Kind of tapping out of being responsible for what goes on and saying, no, this needs to be settled by the two. But you can't leave him there knowing I'd be too ashamed. You have to fight him and give him a chance to kill you. And, whoever survives will keep me. Katsumaru, or whatever his name is, sounds solid. So he cuts this guy free, and the samurai husband immediately attacks. They have a really glorious, very well choreographed, awesome samurai sword fight. It goes on a long time. It's really glorious and heroic and wild and like a lot of fun to watch. And in the end, he wins. But then by then the girl has ran off, apparently scared off by the sound of the sword fight. And what I liked about her was that she was fierce, and she's scared off by a sword fight. She's just a regular woman anyways, and he's lost interest. So he takes the guy's sword and goes and sells off the guy's valuables and goes about his business. So that's his version. And her version, she says, I was in shock. There's things she doesn't remember. She's the least reliable narrator by her own account of anyone, because there's gaps and she forgets and passes out and stuff. But by her thing, she's claiming to be the faithful, dutiful wife and completely a victim. And just, as far as we can tell, she's claiming to just have been raped. And she's ashamed. And she runs over to her husband and tries to go to his side, cuts him free afterwards. And, the bandit, I think, after he's had his way with her, he doesn't even want her in her version. So she runs over to her husband, and he just sort of like, he won't even talk to her, and he's giving her this glare, and she's ashamed and crying, and basically she starts begging him to as she cuts him free, to beat her, kill her, do whatever he has to do, but please just don't look at her like that. And he's just not even talking. He's just like, it's a look of loathing. She's so ashamed, and his look is so hateful, and then she has the knife in hand, and she faints. She's so overcome. When she comes to, her knife is in her husband's chest, and he's dead. She's so taken aback by shame, she runs off and tries to kill herself, throws herself in the river. It doesn't work. That's her story. She's just a poor victim, and her husband wouldn't have her back, was all shamed and ruined by it all. And then the medium, the psychic, gives us supposedly the husband's version. And in the husband's version, he has to sit there and watch his wife have sex with the dude, or get raped or whatever. But afterwards, she looks up, and it's the most beautiful she's ever looked to him. Right before she says to the bandit that she will go with him anywhere. I'll follow you anywhere. You can take me anywhere. She's running off with the new bandit, and the guy's just sitting there watching. And then she stops on their way out and just like straight up says, kind of the same thing from Bandit's story, but in like meaner terms. And it's like, we gotta kill this dude. We can't just leave him there. Same shit. Basically, only one living man per vagina, I guess. The bandit is horrified by her turncotery and how vicious she is. He didn't want to kill the dude, he just wanted to take the girl. And mind you, this is the dead man's story, supposedly. And the bandit himself has a change of heart from seeing this, and he grabs the girl and just throws her on the ground and stomps her under his foot and has her pinned to the ground by his foot and looks over to the tied-up samurai and says, "It's up to you. Do you want me to kill her? Just say the word. I'll do it." And at that moment, the samurai forgives the bandit in his heart. because his blood has run cold. Her betrayal trumps everything, and he hates her now, and so much that like that moment he pardons the bandit in his heart for throwing the girl down, threatening to kill her for the samurai. She struggles and gets away, I think, and the bandit chases after her. Then he comes back later and says she got away to the samurai who's tied up. And the samurai's telling the story from, like, hell, like, I guess, like, Shinto hell or whatever, from a dark place of shame and whatever. And then in this story, the bandit in the end frees him, cuts his ropes, and says, so now the bandit's worried for his own life because that treacherous woman is out there. Wanders off. The samurai uses his wife's pearl dagger to kill himself. He plunges it into his own heart. He's broken and destroyed and devastated by this terrible betrayal. And then as he's lying there, losing consciousness, staring at the sun, like the last thing he remembers before he dies is someone comes and pulls the dagger out of his heart. Then we get the laborer, the old man, the woodcutter who's at Rashomon in the rain. Basically, he takes exception to this story after him or the priest retell it, and but the man was killed with a sword, and then the asshole who's wandered upon them is like, whoa, so you do know more, and then he reveals that he just didn't want to get involved, but he actually saw the whole thing. So then we get our fourth version of the story, and in the fourth version of the story, after the woman is raped, the bandit is crazed and begging her to marry him. She's just crying and won't answer, and eventually gets mad. It's like, answer me, or I'll kill you. You marry me or I'll kill you. Answer me. And then she hops up and grabs her knife and runs over to her husband and yells, I'm just a woman. Again, basically, like, why are you asking me? I'm just a piece of property. I have no responsibility. It's her stance that she's saying, but not as sinister. I mean, she basically seems to be helpless and running to her husband, and she frees him on the spot to speak for her in this. And she's basically saying that you're the men. It's up for you to determine what happens to me. Stop asking me. And she runs over to her husband and frees him. But he is in this version just the biggest douche ever, because she's been her virtue is not intact. He just he throws her on the ground and he's just like I'm ashamed of you. You should kill yourself. You're a whore. You're used. And the bandit guy just sort of kind of get the impression that he's had a change of heart. He seems to be just wanting to walk away from this mess. He's sort of horrified. But then he sort of very hesitantly says, go easy, dude. She's a woman. She's weak. Stop bullying her. And then that prompts the woman to hop up. And I'm weak. You guys are the ones who are weak. And she explains that basically she hates her husband. Always had. It's a charade marriage. She doesn't come out and say this, but it's sort of, from my point of view, part of his weakness is that he was the stupid guy who let this all happen by letting the bandit trick him. If he's going to walk around being protector samurai pants, then yeah, he is pretty weak. He also, loses the sword fight in the versions that have a sword fight. He's not a very strong samurai, kind of a beta samurai, but she hates him, and it's a sham marriage. And she says, if you're going to tell me to kill myself, kill that guy first. You don't even have the right to do that yet because you haven't avenged your own honor or whatever. And then she goes to Takamaru or whatever, the bandit, and is like, and you're weak because you're this famous bandit. I was so hopeful that when you got involved that you were gonna solve this terrible husband problem for me, but now you're not, and you're just kind of trying to wander out. And then she basically goes intense crazy and just bullies them into having a duel for her, and fighting for her. And they're the fight is so different from the other sword fight. It's not heroic. Both of them look terrified and hesitant the entire time, and they're panting. And most of the fight happens it's not even a sword fight. Pretty soon, the bandit loses his sword, so the samurai is running around the only one with the sword, and like they're rolling around in the dirt, and he's trying to stab him. Then he loses his sword, and they're rolling around in the dirt, and finally Takamura goes to get his sword and like grabs it, and then chases the running samurai and kills him. And he's just the whole time he's panting and terrified, and they're weak. The fight is like the opposite of a heroic fight, and like the girl leaves in the middle of this, and that's the woodcutter's real story. Until a few minutes later, the guy points out the hole that whatever happened to that knife, you have it, don't you? And he's sort of forced to concede that he does. So even his version of the story is suspect and not reliable, because the guy didn't die from the dagger, which looks pretty much like he did. So yeah, none of the stories add up, and everything from her willingness in the rape and her loyalty to her husband, who killed who, how she died, who untied the samurai, all of these facts fluctuate and aren't certain between the stories. Then we kind of get to the themes, because the priest and the man, they're sitting around just like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Just, they've lost all faith in humanity. And it deals with like how the truth is a lie, how the truth itself is a myth, that because it never exists, because no one perceives it to begin with. We don't perceive things as accurately. It's even the wrong word, because accurately presupposes the existence of a external truth. Whereas we don't perceive things, or we lie as we perceive things. Our senses lie to us, our perceptions lie, and then when we recount them to others, we lie again, and we lie to ourselves again. And then as others hear us, every step of the way is just distortion and concealment to go Heideggerian on you. And so, and the men are horrified about this. You also just get into ethics of just selfishness, and it's like, well, if the truth isn't there, and every people bend it, bend life as they experience it. People lie as they live. Like, why? How can you just have faith in anyone, even yourself? It's every man for himself. So I get into like just straight up selfishness. We're all here alone, kind of faith in humanity type of stuff. Lots of gender judgment stuff of like women lie through their tears. And are women weak? And are men weak? We explore gender stuff and sort of this no holds barred. It's like 1950. Japan. So you don't have a lot of third wave feminism filtering it through or anything like that. But it's truth and human worth and selfishness. So yeah, that's what it delves into, and I love the themes. But I just need to get in. Execution is just as good as concepts here. Kurosawa, the scenes are so beautiful. There aren't throwaway scenes. There aren't scenes in which they're not lovingly and carefully created, where the visuals aren't considered. The ratio of free space to subject in the shots is interesting. He uses weather a lot in this. The wind is sort of blamed for making this all happen because the wind lifts the veil of the beautiful wife, and the bandit catches a glimpse of her face and decides he has to have her. The rain is the prison that holds these three men together, and it's so beautiful the way they do the rain. I've heard that
old school black and white rain is a mixture of water and milk, because milk fragments light and shows up better on film than water. And I could definitely see that in this. It's big, the way it puddles on the steps of the ruined building Rashomon. It's gorgeous. And all the shots in the forest, they show the sun coming through the leaves and the trees, and the shadows. Often the sky, the camera angles will do this thing where you have a person standing, and then you have the trees behind them and the sun behind them, and the shadow of the leaves is on the person. So as you change perspective, and as the person moves and the camera moves, you have the sky texture moving behind the leaves against the sun texture moving behind the person, and then in a syncopated, kind of different scale way, you have the person moving under kind of the same texture of the shadows, and it's disorienting and beautiful. And their camera angles, like as the woodcutter is walking through the woods, there's some cool stuff where they go under this kind of wooden bridge that he's walking across, and you look. It's a steep angle up, and you just look at him overhead. Every little scene is created beautifully, and is rich and full of intent. So yeah, the visuals are just lovely. I don't watch a lot of black and white films just because I love color so much, but it's always nice whenever a black and white film is visually impressive, beautiful, and the grayscale is really it's very low contrast, I guess you'd say, so that it's not really, it doesn't feel like a black and white film. It feels like a grayscale film. The lights, or the highlights in each shot is generally the highlight, the brightest points are low, and I guess the shadow, or like the darkest points, are kind of high, so that or rather there's a full gradient of color in the shots, so that I think I've expressed what I'm trying to say there. Sometimes black and white films, it's just like almost like they're black spots and white spots. It's like high contrast and not as much detail, and the full luscious grayscale really works for this film. I guess Kurosawa, from what I'm reading, he works frequently with sort of. There's a thing that will sometimes happen where a director and an actor become associated with each other, and like Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, and they work together a lot, and often in each other's biggest pieces, and that apparently has happened. Hold on, my coffee, with Kurosawa and this Japanese actor named I think it's Mifune. Might be mispronouncing his name, but he plays the bandit in this. What was his name? Whatever. And he was great. Just he's a really good actor. While I was watching, I was like, oh my god, that guy's really got something. I've got to look him up. And then I looked up. Oh, that's the guy that Kurosawa makes all of his best movies with. That's his leading man. He's like, he's charming. You never don't like him. Even when he's like raping and murdering, he's sympathetic and likable. He's like, kind of rides the fence of wild man, like animal, and like lovable
Jack Sparrow style rogue, and Joker trickster. He's there are points in which I'm reminded of the character, the Joker in the Batman series, which has sort of started to take on a known cultural thing, like this high point, because Jack Nicholson and then of course Heath Ledger took the role to such heights, and now Jared Leto is scheduled to take it on. He's an actor who's really taken seriously, and it looks like he's working his ass off. So if Jared Leto's performance of the Joker is coming up in a film called Suicide Squad, if it's not amazing, everyone's going to be disappointed. Anyways, this Mifune is a Joker character, and a lot of the same charms. He delights like a child, like a clever child, in his tricks. He pounces around like an animal, and there are moments of madness when in the knife fights and sword fights when the fight is going against him and he should be freaked out. Instead, he gives this wild smile. He's enjoying the stimulation of it all, and like he's just sort of like follows his impulses, and just he almost seems hapless at times, and he's just full of gumption and fire and he conveys sympathy and gravitas briefly in flashes. He's so dynamic. He just 1 second it's this, and he shifts. It's a shapeshifter. He's so good in this role. And kind of the rape scene is basically, for the most part, it's not actually shown per se. What you get is the lots of shots of the aftermath of her crying and him either trying to console her or her begging him afterwards, or whatever the different versions of the story kind of go. You get the aftermath, and then in his version of the story alone, do you get everything leading up to the rape. It's the knife fight in which he takes hold and has her pinned, and he begins kissing her, and she begins kissing him back eventually, and touching him. She drops the knife and allows it to happen, I guess. It's potent and troubling. I'm like, I can't believe this is 1950, because I'm pretty sure that couldn't have been made by Western cinema, or at least by American Hollywood cinema back then, because there's something called standards and practices, which was a more or less voluntary thing that all of the film studios opted into. I think it was voluntary, by which they were really limited in what they could show, and like there was like a moral watchdog in movies that got made, and like you had to make sure the message was good. The bad guys all got punished. Everyone who sinned too grievously got punished and couldn't be showed to prosper after immoral behavior, and then of course just there were limits on what you could show. And I don't think that they would have allowed actual rape in a film in the West like this, and if they did, they wouldn't have been able to show it. By modern standards, this is by no means graphic, but it's still gripping and well done. It's troubling and sort of sexually tantalizing, and just it's weighty. A whole part of the thing is how consensual was the thing, but I think it's fair to call it a rape regardless of what was going on. So that scene was potent and well done, and it's implied. It's almost classy. It's almost a classy rape scene, which is a pretty offensive thing to say, I guess. I'm sorry, but it's that was something. What else have you got? So the weakest actor in the whole thing was the samurai.
He didn't have as many lines, but he kind of, I don't know. Like, you were supposed to get a glimpse, or you get a glimpse of the look that he gives the woman, which just, tears apart her soul, and like, it kind of looks like a silly grin. It's not very intense, and it looks weird and kind of funny. Like she makes that scene work, and she's doing all the work there. She was really good too. So film was beautiful, interesting, and potent, and really delves the horror, the unreliable narrator that is us, and everything we say, think, do, and experience. Just kind of make us feel better in the end. I guess they redeemed the woodcutter a little, and it's like the priest. The priest is like naive and sort of silly, almost, and he's younger too. And in the end, when the man takes the baby, the priest is so impressed with the man and lauds him and says that his faith in humanity is restored. And I guess he's like a Shinto priest or something, and he's almost like a priest of humanism. Everything about him seems to be the human soul and the human spirit and the goodness of people. So he's he gives the baby to the dude, and the dude takes the baby to raise. Because that guy, the woodcutter, already has 6 kids, so one more won't make a difference. That's the spirit.
But the priest is so grateful and impressed, and he says that his faith in humanity has been restored. And it ends on a high note after going to some pretty goddamn dark places. And but also it's like you see the priest is just seeing what he needs to see here, and drawing the conclusion he needs to draw from it. Which the bastard, the guy who steals the kimono, he spells out. He's got some great lines in the end, and he's the voice of the. I guess at first he represents the audience. He's the listener who doesn't know things the other people tell stuff to. But in the end, he's like the voice of the author. He's the editor. He's the one who draws the conclusion from all this and spells it out for you. And beautiful. I mean, obviously, I was doing a translated subtitles thing because it's in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, but it was translated beautifully, and I'm sure the original lines were at least as well done. And he's just got these really great lines about truth and how we're all in this alone, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one can know their own soul and all this, and basically he spells out what the priest does, and the priest does it. How people see what they need to see, and he says that people remember the good parts, and they forget all the bad things that people do, which then we see. But it also lets us feel good, because it sort of ends on a sort of happy note, I guess. I did want to say that the acting was so strong. Lots of them, but especially this Mifune guy. That I wish I spoke Japanese, because my eyes needed to be on the subtitles so much. But whenever I could manage to steal a glimpse of the faces delivering these lines, the acting was so good. And it's also interesting to me because it's 1950. And anyone who knows a little about history knows that a movie from Japan in 1950 being viewed in the West, there's a lot
of rough cultural shit going on there. We just conquered their asses. And now we're watching the movies. And Kurosawa, I guess, I mean, from what I understand, he's pretty pro-Western, because he's really influenced by a lot of cinema. And he made his bones. He did his early body of work that, prior to Rashomon during the war. So it's interesting, the idea of seeing a pro-Western Japanese writer-director make movies during World War II, sympathetic to the values of the people that his country is fighting against, but also very steeped in Japanese tradition. You know, it's all samurais, and these are very Japanese movies. And the fact that this guy was making these films, these profound films, during the war, and then after the Reconstruction process, and all the way late, I think into like the 70s, maybe even the 80s, I feel it's going to be a really, really illuminating experience, getting into the heart and soul of Japan, what it lost and gained from the war and the occupation. So, yeah. So I guess I want to keep talking about it. This movie is so good. But I gotta rate it. I'm not sure to say. So, I'm giving it a 10. Rashomon gets a 10 out of 10. It was that good. The thing about 10s is they need to hold up. The opinion itself needs to hold up. It might sink to a 9 in the long run, but I'm so hesitant to give a 10 to something I've just seen because 10 needs to mean an ongoing love that unfolds, becomes a part of you and challenges you, and it's executed near perfectly. And I think that's all true. I can't. I mean, I want this movie to become a part of who I am, and like one of those films that I take with me when I view other films, and when I live my life. It's such a good movie, so I'm giving it. Here we go. Rashomon gets a 10 out of 10, and that's my first 10 in this reviewing cycle. So I hope you won't think that I'm cheap, that I'm too giving with my 10s, but Rashomon gets one. So yeah, I guess there you have it. I'll see you soon.